Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're looking at the Cobra POGO Ballistic Battle Ball. Okay, this was first introduced in the United States in 1987, was also sold in 88, and unfortunately was discontinued in 1989. So, looking here at yojo.com, we have some wonderful views um, and thinking about how we're going to try and put this into our kind of GI Joe Star Wars universe. Um, I was kind of looking at some of the something I think would kind of make some sense here. Um, going off the idea, hey, we're kind of reverse engineering things and that. Um, so we kind of go from there. Now the funny thing is when we get to our uh, blueprints here, it only shows one. Actually, it doesn't even call it a missile; it calls it a bomb, and it doesn't address the uh, laser cannons underneath here. So I took a little liberty at this, trying to give it a certain sense of what it is really about here. So um, I know this really comes in the DIC line when Cobra Commander becomes Cobra Commander again after the movie, and we kind of go on from there. So we get some really strange vehicles at times, and I'm trying to really understand what some of this stuff might really be. So as we look at this, and here we have our schematic. So going through, we have the Hobo homing bomb system. Um, was a KM4560 infrared guidance bomb. So you have one spot that says it's a bomb, another spot that says it's a missile. So I put it as a missile, not a bomb. Then we have dual stage liquid propellant containment, short blast, 30 millimeter per pound, controlled burst rocket. So it's got all right, a rocket and a bomb. We're just going to leave it at having the missiles here. Control computer cooling unit, real feel, ground sensitive landing pod, servo operated adjustable leg hinge, um, nitrogen compression relief shocks, calm impact resistant tinted canopy, live wire communications antenna, artificial field gain controls, stand up semi prone personnel seat, flight computer or flight control monitor and control computers, and hydraulic support hoses. So, you know, looking at this in some regards, and this is where I'm kind of taking this, it's almost like it's a reverse engineering of an escape pod, and we've turned it into a small one, maybe a two man, um, kind of like a uh, space vessel, in order to actually get from the ground all the way up to space. I know that's not how this was used. It was actually shown, I believe, in a cartoon once, um, but not very many times at all. So really, like I said, I'm just looking at this as more of a very small space vessel to kind of get up to space, because at this point we start getting the Defiant um, shuttle system and all that. So we're starting to get a little bit more into the space operations and all that in some of the toys. Now I know that early on we had actually had what do they call that? Space Station Delta. So maybe Cobra's starting to get some space stations, or maybe they're starting to go out a little bit more into the solar system than just being on Earth itself. So, however we want to look at it, and I'm thinking, we're starting to get a little bit more spaceborne. We had that technology, but we haven't really been trying to do it on a smaller level. But in just a few short years, we've gone from having bigger vessels to try and get into space to possibly some smaller vessels here. So that's the way I'm taking this. So easily broken and or lost pieces, we have the machine guns, antenna, the hoses, the missiles, and the Cobra POGO ballistic battle ball are easily lost. So essentially, the whole thing kind of gets lost and all that stuff. Not that people intend to, but it just happens here. So, looking at what this has all been featured in, we do have a nice view here in the comic book series. And then we start seeing some other vehicles here and some interesting characters as well. And we just kind of go from there. Let's see. And then we had this in a Nintendo video game that they had done way back when. Again, Nintendo with Capcom doing it. Let's see. And then this is Battleground. And last but not least, we have our commercial. Okay. And then when we look at it, we have the Pogo Ballistic Ball in 1987, and then we have the Invader in 93. So let's see what the Invader looked like. Okay, so the Invader is more or less the same thing, just a recolor, and it looks like it has some different missiles on there, but essentially it's the same thing. So when we get to that, I think we'll probably skip that and just consider a slight variation of it. And of course, Brazil had some slightly different box art on here, which is perfectly fine. Different language barriers and everything else. And because I've been mentioning it, the original price way back when was $3.49. So, what it would be today, I'm sure it'd be closer to 20, maybe $30. That makes sense, but to think of it way back when being that little bit. So, all right. So, like I was saying, trying to encompass this really into the G.I. Joe Star Wars galaxy that we are creating here. So, we have the Cobra Pogo. This is at speeder scale. So, when I was actually looking up what escape pods really are, they're at speeder scale. So, this fits that same feel. Kind of crosses both of them. I did make it about 10 feet or 3 meters. It is a little higher. I gave it a little extra room, whether it's warranted or not. A single um, a single seat escape pod, I believe, was like 1.5 meters. I really wanted something that could possibly have a second person in here. Just thinking that maybe there's a very small jump seat and you're really going to be kind of squished in here. More than likely, you're going to be using up some of the cargo capacity. And I did take the cargo capacity from a single person escape pod, and that's where I'm getting that number from. So, really trying to bridge that gap here. Okay, of course we're going to have full coverage. A single seat escape pod had a space of 1. That's what I'm giving this. If it's coming from a launcher, so if you have a specialized launcher, it would actually have a boost of 4. So it would actually have a space of 4 for a short period of time, but then it would go down to a 1. Um, the escape pod would have a maneuverability of 0D. So I figured that this is a little ungainly. It's not the most agile thing out there. So that's what I would leave it at. And that would actually put us at about 210 miles per hour or 600 kilometers per hour. Okay. Body strength comes down to about a 3D. Now, that's all kind of taking from the one-man escape pod from the Star Wars universe. So now we get to add the weapons because we're taking a escape pod and we're trying to build onto it to make this a military machine of some sort. So we do have 2 anti-air missiles. These are the same missiles that we've seen before. I literally copy and pasted them from some of the other uh, vehicles that we have used. So it has a fire control of 1D and a 7D damage. Now, I know that it does have like a radar on here and everything else, but I think trying to do guidance and everything for an earlier prototype, I think you're going to have a lower fire control. Quite often, this was meant to just kind of hop along, and that's why it's got the Pogo name to it. But it also gives us that ability to go out to space. So, however we wanted to use it, it's trying to encompass two different things, but not really doing either one the greatest. So in that realm, I don't want this to be the best out there. Could it be very effective if you have a good pilot in there? Most definitely. Is it really going to be effective for an average person jumping in there? Probably not. All right, and then we have a dual heavy laser cannon. So again, this is copy pasted from one of the other machines that we have that has a actually it was a quad heavy laser cannon, but um, I'm putting this as a turret. So I'm going to see on the bottom ring here going around our jump jets. That is a full turret going all the way around. So there is no front or back here. If this thing is just kind of shooting around, it could shoot in any direction. And of course, now you're trying to encompass all of that. Your fire control may not be the greatest. So I left that at 1D as well. So that's my reasoning for it. If you don't agree with it, by all means, change it for what you think it should be. Okay? But I did give it a 7D damage. So it is lethal. And this is at speeder scale. So when it gets up to Walker scale, that's going to be a 5D. And if you're trying to hit tanks with it, you get a plus 2D for your fire control, so it will be easier to hit. But there again, if you're trying to hit personnel, some Joes or whatever, or if a Joe steals this and is trying to take out a couple Cobra bats or troopers or whatever have you, um, your fire control is going to drop down to a negative 1D, but your damage is going to jump up to a 9D. So, just keep that in mind. It's going to be very lethal, but it's going to be very ungainly trying to target someone at a smaller scale here. And that's really what that's all about, you know. Um, but I think this kind of bridges a gap. This is a self sustained, single person kind of vehicle to get up to space if we needed to. Um, Trying to use it in that regard, but it can also be used as like a giant pogo ball to actually attack something if needed. Um, Chances are I could see someone trying to attack some other aircraft because we have the anti-air missiles. So if you had a couple of these launching off and someone's trying to attack you, you could easily attack. Um, and actually, your damage is going to go down. But think about it: if you have one of these and you're being attacked by a starfighter, okay, you're going to add 4D for your fire control, so you're going to have a plus 5D to hit it, but you're only going to do 3D damage. So it's not going to do a lot of damage, but you're going to hit almost every time. And that repetitive hit after hit after hit could wear down a starfighter. Even more so if you have a couple of these. So um, just kind of keeping that all in mind. Now, of course, this has got a body strength of 3D. So when a starfighter hits it, you're going to be toast fairly quick. But if you're hitting a starfighter or something like that, you could possibly do some damage, especially if you get some really nice rolls on that. So just keeping that in mind. So with that, it's a wonderful, kind of awkward vehicle. It was always kind of a goofy vehicle when you looked at it and you see it in use. Um, but trying to give it a real world sense of, hey, this is really meant to get us out to space so we can try and get to our space station as a low cost vehicle or something like that. But we could also press it into service to actually attack someone else. It makes sense in that regard. Like I said, it's trying to do two different things, maybe not the best, but it is functional. So, with that, hope you enjoy the series. It's fun bringing this to you every day. We're in uncharted territories. I've got to keep working on getting all these kind of done up because all the ones I had done up a while ago, I've already run out. So we have to keep hitting the new vehicles and coming up with stats along the way. So, like I said, every time I do these or whatever, if there are stats in here you don't agree with, change it for what works for you. If you're doing this as a role playing game, make it your own. Make this work. I'm just giving a good guideline, something I feel fits the machine, and brings it into the Star Wars universe. So at some point, we have to start getting some kind of missions going or whatever else to kind of throw some ideas out there. I do have a great starter idea. We'll have to share that sometime soon. But with that, hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for visiting, and we'll see you in the next video.